Hey, what's going on, everyone? It's time. It's Mike Colleen at MikeColleen.com, and today we're going to talk about scapegoats and what happens to the group or family when you leave. Okay, so I just did a quick Google and let me read this off. It says a narcissist will decide who the scapegoat is based on their own fears. This is the narcissist fears. Based on their feelings of jealousy, sense of inadequacy, and insecurities. From a narcissist perspective, a scapegoat is someone who somehow triggers their fears, feelings of jealousy, sense of inadequacy, and insecurities. So here's the deal. The reason why you were the one that was picked was because you were the strongest one out of the whole group, so they had to beat you down. Because you were more confident, you were more capable, you had more talents, there's actually more than one thing about you that made them feel very insecure. So they had to turn everyone against you and beat you down. Alright, so one thing I want you to understand is this. You actually didn't do anything to them but be kind, loving, and just be the good person that you are. Your very presence terrified them. It triggered their insecurities. It triggered all their issues. Simply because you were just comfortable with yourself. You were just a happy person. Now here's another one. Oh God, I could think of so many different narcissists that I'm actually kind of grinning right now. Okay, so let me put it out there. So here's another one. When people like you, it makes them feel really insecure. So here's, I'm thinking of the last one I dealt with a few years back. Is he had introduced me to some people that he knew, and they really liked me. Like they lit up, like, hey, what's going on? And they were just really, really into me, really positive. And you could see this dude just fucking smoldering, just fucking pissed. So as I look back now, I'm like, wow, like it's such an obvious sign now. Like I see it now more than ever. And so it's such a strong confirmation of, wow, that person was so insecure. I remember the time going, well, what's wrong with this guy? Like, I didn't make the connection at first. Like now I see, like it's not just him, but I can go back to my girlfriend in my 20s and go back to just all kinds of experiences with everyone. All right, I want to see if anyone else had this experience. And this was the thing that really kind of started it all. So this narcissist that I was dealing with, out of the blue one night, I hadn't talked to him for, I don't know, 2 or 3 weeks. I don't remember how long it was, but it was a little while. Out of the freaking blue, I get a phone call, and I go, hello, this is Mike. And now I have a landline, because I do my coaching, my therapy on my landline when I talk to the phone, because I can hear people better, I can tune in better, and they can hear me better. So my point being is, I do have one of those phone things on there, but it's not lit up like a cell phone where you can actually see the name and number. So I just answered the phone, hello. And this person goes, am I triggering you? Am I triggering you? Am I triggering you? I was like, what? Are you what? Because I didn't understand at first, because they kept repeating it over and over. I'm like, I'm sorry, what's going on? And they go, am I triggering you? I'm like, no, who is this? Am I triggering you? Am I triggering you? Am I triggering you? I was like, what the fuck? And they just kept, I go, who is this? And finally the person said their name. I'm like, dude, I go, what is your problem, man? And they went right, am I triggering you? Am I triggering you? And I was like, you know what, dude? You're weird. I am fucking done. Don't ever call me again. I just hung up the fucking phone. So I turned the phone off, went to bed, and then I think it was the next day they contacted me, and I'm so sorry, all this typical narcissistic bullshit. And what did they say? They said something. They said, this is what they said. I go, dude, like, what in the fuck? Like, I didn't know what the word triggering means. That was like a new thing to me. I'd like, what does that mean? And I still didn't. And they said, well, I wouldn't have done that if I knew you were never going to talk to me again. I'm like, wait, what did you do? Wait, what? So would you have done it if you knew I was going to keep talking to you? Like, well, yeah. I'm like, oh my God, like what a dumbass. All right, so let's get this going. All right, well, that is part of it, though. So here was, I don't know if it was the first time it happened, but okay, I've got a list of things I'm going to talk about right here. So this is the first one. So basically, when I was really young. I was still being carried around. So I'm going to guess I was 6 to 8 months old. I was really small. And we used to own two restaurants. One was a Ken's House Pancakes in Vacaville. And my mom and dad owned that one. We had a restaurant across the street. So anyways, we went there. I remember it was about 11 a.m. It was morning-ish. And I was a little baby. And I have a I remember the day I came home from the hospital. I'm serious. So I have a very good long-term memory. Very visual. So my mom walked in carrying me, all proud and everything, and she sat down at one of the booths, and about 4 of the waitresses came over. Oh, he's so cute, he's so adorable, oh my god, oh my god. And I remember my mom just getting really, like, it's like she didn't say anything, but she just got this heated anger, and it was like all of a sudden the waitresses pulled back away, and they looked at my mom like, oh fuck. And I remember as a little baby just going, what's going on? Like, why was she so pissed? She was pissed off because, look, you got to understand, people have a hard time understanding, well, but they love their children. No, they don't love the children. The children brings them attention. When I got the attention and she was not getting the attention, that enraged her. Now, I had someone ask me about a year ago, like, well, yeah, but it seems like they love their children. It's like, no, as long as their children is getting them benefits and or attention, it seems like they love their attention. But I'm telling you right now, the minute that child gets the attention themselves, that person's going to be pissed off, and that child is now going to be the scapegoat and is going to be at the brunt of their fevered anger for the rest of their life. Alright, so now, what happens when the scapegoat finally leaves the family? By the way, the scapegoat is actually not, they call it the black sheep. You're not the black sheep. They're the black sheep, okay? You are actually the white sheep that they're trying to make look like the black sheep, okay? So, here's the deal. So what ended up happening, I was in my 20s. My mom convinced me to move out of my dad's house to move back in with her. I was probably 20. I think I was just before I turned 21 years old. I was 19 or 20. And she made this deal. You could live here for free. You can go to college. And I was like, oh my God. So yeah, so after a year of trying to get me to move out, I finally did. Well, of course she wanted me to move out because she didn't want me to realize that my dad was actually a good person, which he was. And well, he's dead now, but he was a very good person. So here's what happened. My friend Greg had moved to town, and we bumped into each other one day. And long story short, we started hanging out. And one day, you know, he would usually just drop me off and take off, but he wanted to come in. I'll tell you why, because I was dating a girl named Jennifer who was friends with his girlfriend. So they set me up with her. And when I brought her over to meet my mom, what happened is when I came out of the bathroom, and we just got there, I was like, hey, I got out of the bathroom. And when I walked back out, Jennifer was standing up. She was pissed off. She was right by the door. She had a purse in her hand, just both arms crossed over it. I was like, what the fuck's going on here? And I go, what's going on? She goes, take me home now. I'm like, well, what did I do? She goes, Michael, you didn't do nothing. Just take me home now, or I'm going to call a taxi. I was like, okay, but you're being rude to my family. She goes, Michael. I was like, okay. So I got in the car, and we started driving home to her house. And she had said, before you even closed the door, your mom and your sister started talking shit about you, saying these horrible things about you, that you're going to cheat on me, that you're a liar, just all these, and I was like, what are you talking about? Why would my mom do that? Well, thank God she woke me up to that. But she had her psychology degree. And she goes, Michael, no mother would do that. That is just such a horrible thing to do. Even if it was true, that's just not right. So I still didn't know what narcissist was abuse. But now here's what happened. So basically what she said was, they were telling me that you had cheated on me already. But the problem is, number one, we've never had sex. And we just started dating like 2 weeks ago. So it wasn't like we weren't in a relationship. Okay, so we had just met. So let me kind of fast forward to something. So long story short, I didn't know it at the time, but Jennifer had gone back, talked to her girlfriend and Greg, and said, hey, Michael's family's fucked up, and this is what happened, blah, blah, blah. And so this actually happened with my next girlfriend. They did the same thing, and that's when I got effing pissed. I was like, what the fuck? Like, you know, like, because it was the same thing. I went to the bathroom, and when I came back out, my ex, she wasn't as verbal. Jennifer was very, very confident and very outspoken. She was a very bold young lady. But my next one had told me when he left, and I was like, what? Again? What the fuck? So once I learned about narcissist abuse, I looked back on after my high school girlfriend met my mother, and that's when things went really sour. Okay, so now I'm like, oh, I'm seeing a pattern here. So now that I'm all grown up and I've learned a lot about narcissist abuse the last so many years, I see the patterns like, oh, okay, so I see it now. So now watch this. There's a really cool thing that happened. So let's go back to that summer when I introduced Jennifer to my mother and my sister, and they started talking shit, and Jennifer was all pissed off and take me home, right? Well, I didn't know it at the time, but Jennifer had went back and told Greg and her friend, Greg's girlfriend, her best friend, what had happened, and this really pissed Greg off because Greg had known me since middle school, and we played football together, we had classes together, we used to hang out together, so Greg knew me very, 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 very well. So we bumped into each other, and we started hanging out. Now this is when I was about 20 years old, so a couple years after we graduated from high school, about 3 or 4 years, whatever. And this time, though, when he went to drop me off, he goes, hey, man, I want to come inside and meet your family. Like, no. And then I was, because I didn't really understand what it was, but they would always humiliate me in front of my friends, right? So he goes, oh, okay. Well, so when we parked, what happened was he just jumped out. I'm like, what are you doing? He's like, oh, well, I got to go to the bathroom. I'm like, okay. So what ended up happening, we walked in, and my mom was there, my sister. I think my mom's boyfriend was there at the time, and I think there was another person, but I don't remember who it was. I'd be guessing it at this point. So what ended up happening was I went to the bathroom, as usual, come back out, and Greg's fucking pissed. Now, Greg was a big construction worker. He's a big, bulky dude, big bones, broad shoulders, strong dude, tough dude, and aggressive dude. And and what ended, now you gotta understand, when now a lot of you probably you understand this, when you are abused at a young age and that's all you receive, you think it's normal, even when it's not. So here I am with my buddy, this big sheetrocker, tough dude, rugged dude, rough hands, been in more his fair share of fights. And he's sitting on the couch, and he's just kind of got his hands clasped together, his elbows on his knees, just looking straight forward. He's pissed. I'm like, what the fuck, dude, what's going on? And he goes, fuck those motherfuckers. And I'm like, whoa, Greg, what the fuck, dude? He goes, fuck those. And he's just screaming. I'm like, what are you talking about? And then he turns and points to my mom and my family in the kitchen. He goes, those motherfuckers. And he goes, if you want, because so what happened was, the way my mom talked me into moving back in was, she said you could live here for free, and then you can go to college full time. The problem is, the very first morning, she charged me $150 rent. Now, you got to understand, this was back like 1990, I think it was approximately. And rent back then for the whole place was like it was $525. And so I thought, yeah, that's my fair share, no big deal. But then she doubled it the next month, and then she doubled it again the next month. So I was paying, I think it was like $300 or $350. Plus she added on all these charges for all this other bullshit. So I was paying 400 some bucks. Now we got to remember, back then minimum wage was about $5.25 an hour. So that was a big chunk of money that I was making. All of a sudden I couldn't afford to go to college. So then after Greg is like, fuck those motherfuckers. I'm like, who? He goes, them. And so then he goes, he stands up, he goes, you want to go to college? You can live with me for free. Because I had already told him that that's what my mom had said. And I told him, like, yeah, dude, she doubled my rent again. And like, he was just going, what the fuck's going on here? It was just weird. So I was paying like 2/3 of the rent, or actually more than that, technically, now that I think about it. And so, he gets up, goes, and he goes, where's the garbage bags? I'm like, underneath the kitchen sink. Why? So he just starts ripping plastic garbage bags out. He walks down, like, where's your bedroom? I'm like, oh, Greg, what the fuck are you doing? And so he had pulled his truck, happened to back it up to the window where my bedroom was at. And all of a sudden, he starts grabbing all my clothes, throwing the clothes. He pushes the screen out, and he starts throwing the bags into the car. He goes, you're moving in with me, which was super, super cool, right? So we get over to his house, And now you got to understand, he was fucking pissed. He was still just burning up. So when we got there, he was just like, that's not normal for a family to talk that way about their own brother and their own son, blah, blah, blah. He goes, that's fucked up. And here's what he said. He goes, you can stay with me for as long as you want. I'm like, okay. He goes, but there's one rule. I'm thinking, oh, fuck. I go, what? I got to be in on a certain time? No. He goes, I don't give a fuck if you come in at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning. He goes, I don't give a shit. Now, the cool thing is I had my own room. He had a hot tub. It was just a really cool setup. So I'm like, well, what's that rule? And he goes, you've been abused for so long, you think it's normal. And I go, what do you mean? He goes, you think that, you sat there when they were belittling you, berating you, talking shit, right in front of us, and you acted like it was no big deal. He goes, you've been so abused that you think this is just normal behavior. He goes, Michael, that's not normal. He goes, your family should get your back no matter what. He goes, I don't even care if you break a law. They should freaking lie to you, don't speak, don't say, they should be there on your side. So he goes, you can live here for free. You don't have to pay for nothing. He goes, you don't even have to pay for your long distance phone calls. I'm like, seriously? He goes, yeah. He goes, you can eat whatever I have in the kitchen. He goes, you can eat whatever you want. He goes, the money that you make for your job, spend it any way you want. You don't have to go to college. If you want, great. You can save up, buy a car, do whatever the fuck you want. I was like, Jesus, thanks. Like, it was fucking cool. Now watch this. He goes, there's only one rule. I go, okay, what's that? He goes, you cannot talk to your family or anyone associated, no relatives, no cousin, no family friends, no coworkers, nothing. He goes, for 1 year, and then you can go back and talk to them. So I said, why? He goes, Michael, the way you've been treated, you think that this is normal. He goes, Michael, I've known you since middle school. He goes, you were like the nicest, hardest working person I've ever met in my life. He goes, everybody loves you. He goes, the fact that your family treats you that way is unbelievable. And then he said, if you stay away from your family for 1 year, you'll see it. He goes, you don't see it right now. You think that this is normal because that's all you've ever experienced. All right, so what ended up happening was for a year, we went out to clubs, we went out partying, we went dancing. I mean, we had a fucking blast. It was just 2 young men, tough dudes. Now, at the time, let me think. Yeah, I was ranked number 1 in the nation in kickboxing at the time. I was undefeated. And, I'd wrestled in high school, played football. So I was a pretty tough, rugged dude. And Greg was a tough guy on his own hand. So what ended up happening was a year goes by. And one day, sitting on the couch, it was in the morning. And I got up, took a shower, got something to eat. And he's sitting there and said, hey, come here. I'm like, what's going on, man? He goes, it's time. I'm like, what do you mean? What's time? He goes, today's the day. I'm like, oh, I got to move out? He goes, no. He stays long. He goes, Michael, you can stay for the next 5 years if you want. He goes, I don't care. I'm like, well, what's today? He goes, it's 1 year. I'm like, 1 year what? He goes, when you left your family. I was like, oh. He goes, I want you to go back and talk to them. I was like, what? Why? He goes, just trust me. Now, for a young man, this was a pretty wise dude, like seriously. So I went back, and the first day, my mom and my sister were nice to me. Let me make your sandwich. And you could tell they were like walking on eggshells, and they had that like beady little, like looking out of the corner of their eye at me, like it was like they were trying to figure out if I was going to get pissed or not. So then I went back, I think the next day or another day or whatever, and they started in with a narcissistic belittling, cutting, just little, not really big, but little here. Oh, we're just joking, that kind of bullshit, right? Oh, okay. And then what happened is they started belittling me worse and just started talking shit, and they just like ripped into me. Now watch this. So I remember my sister invited me over to her house. Her husband was at work, so I went over there, and we were in the kitchen, and she was like kind of pissed, and she's kind of looking down. She didn't look me in the eye, and I was like, what's going on? You all right? Because I really cared about my little sister. I protected her big time from my other younger brother, from other people. Like, she was my little angel, but really wasn't my angel. So she looks at me and she says, "You have no idea the hell the family's been going through since you left." And I'm like, "What are you talking about?" She goes, "Michael, we're so pissed off at you." I'm like, "That's why I left, because you guys are always pissed off at me. Like, so now that I'm gone, you're mad?" She goes, "Yes." She goes, "That's your place." I'm like, "My place?" And I had a feeling like, like at the bottom, right? I'm like, "What are you talking about?" And she goes, "Ever since you left, we've been fighting each other tooth and nail, and it's like it's nonstop. It's every day, and everyone's trying to blame everyone and I kind of grin for the first. This was like my first victory, and I kind of grin. I'm like, "Wait, what?" I go, and she goes, "We've been tearing each other apart because you've been gone. That's your place." And I got really quiet, and I looked at her and kind of grinned. And I go, "Wait a minute, what do you mean?" I go, "You mean like it's my position at the bottom for everyone to treat me like shit, for everyone to take their anger and their hurt out on?" She goes, "Yes." I go, "Let me guess, because I'm not there, you guys don't have a scapegoat to beat down." She goes, "No." And I go, and she didn't say, but I said, "Now what you guys are doing is fighting not to be the one pushed to the bottom," because she was pretty much the weakest one of all of them, so she was going to be the next one in line. And I go, "So none of you want to be the one that everyone blames and scapegoats and abuses and treats like shit when they're in a bad mood?" She goes, "That's your position in life." And I was like, "What?" And that's when I go, "I've always been here for you. Every time you needed to move," because her and her husband would move like every year. "Who helped you move your furniture?" She goes, "Well, you did." I go, "When Joey used to beat you up, who always protected you?" She goes, "Well, you did." I go, "Whenever you needed a shoulder crying, whenever you needed help," she goes, "Well, it was always you." I go, "So why are you treating me this way?" She goes, "You gotta understand, in this lifetime, you're a slave. That's your position in life." And I was like, "What?" And then she goes, "You're here for us. We're not here for you." And I was like, "Fuck this." And that's when I was like, I left. I ended up moving out. I think I moved about a year later. I forget how long ago, but I ended up moving and leaving for good. So what happens to the group, because it's not always a family, it could be a group of friends or a group that sucked you into their bullshit, their narcissistic bullshit, their cult, or a family. So what happens to them when the black sheep leaves? They lose their shit. That's what happens, and they freak out and they tear each other apart and destroy each other. That's what happens. And let me tell you one more thing. Don't ever go back. They will not change, and they will always do everything in their power to push you back down at the bottom, to treat like shit. Hey, this is Mike Colleen. Be strong, leave the group, and enjoy your life. God bless you guys.